One Piece has over 1,000 episodes, countless arcs, and hundreds of characters. And while the spotlight always shines on the Straw Hats and their biggest enemies, sometimes it's the small side characters who leave the biggest impact. You know the ones I'm talking about, the ones who show up, help Luffy in the most essential way, and then disappear, leaving us wondering, wow, what if they hadn't been there? Because that's the beauty of One Piece. Oda doesn't just build a world full of heroes and villains, he builds a world where even the briefest encounter can change the fate of the entire story. So today, let's talk about the side characters who played absolutely pivotal roles in helping Luffy and his crew. Characters that might not get the same love as the main cast, but without them, the journey could have ended long ago. And let's start with one of the most underrated allies of the Straw Hats, Kokoro. When people think of the Enies Lobby arc, they usually remember Robin yelling, "I want to live," Luffy declaring war on the world government, or the epic fight with Lucci. But let's rewind for a second. None of that would have even been possible without one woman, Kokoro, the train station attendant. At first glance, Kokoro looks like a comedic character. An older woman, always drinking, always slurring her words, and cracking jokes alongside her little granddaughter Chimney. But when push came to shove, Kokoro gave the Straw Hats exactly what they needed, a way to catch the puffing Tom C train. Think about how crucial this was. Robin was being taken to Enies Lobby to be executed. The Straw Hats had no ship that could cross those dangerous waters fast enough. It was Kokoro who told them about the Rocketman, an experimental sea train prototype that could plow through the waves. Without her knowledge and guidance, the crew would have been stuck watching Robin be taken away with no chance of rescue. And here's where it gets even crazier. During the actual infiltration of Enies Lobby, when everything seemed hopeless, Kokoro revealed herself to be a mermaid. Yeah, that drunken old lady was hiding one of the rarest identities in One Piece. And her ability to swim and save the crew from drowning when their ship was sinking? That's the only reason the Straw Hats didn't meet a watery grave right there. So yes, Kokoro might not have had flashy powers or epic fights, but without her, there is no Enies Lobby rescue, no Robin saying, "I want to live," no declaration of war against the world government. Kokoro was the silent MVP of that arc. And speaking of silent MVPs, let's move to another man who saved Luffy's journey more times than we even realize. Bartolomeo. From the Water 7 arc, let's jump all the way to Dressrosa, where the Straw Hats encountered one of the most unique allies in the series, Bartolomeo. When he was first introduced, Bartolomeo looked like trouble. A punk with green spiky hair, tattoos, and a sadistic personality. But the truth? Bartolomeo is the Straw Hats' biggest fanboy. He idolizes Luffy so much that he literally formed his entire life philosophy around the Straw Hat crew. And his assistants? Pivotal. In Dressrosa, Bartolomeo used his barrier fruit to shield Luffy and the others from attacks that would have crushed them. When Luffy needed time to recover before fighting Doflamingo, Bartolomeo was the one who created the shield that kept enemies at bay. What makes his contribution special is the emotional weight behind it. Bartolomeo isn't just strong, he represents the impact Luffy has on the world. He's living proof that Luffy's actions inspire others to step in, to fight for him, and to protect him when he can't protect himself. Without Bartolomeo and Dressrosa, the fight against Doflamingo would have been 10 times harder. And beyond that arc, his role in forming the Straw Hat Grand Fleet shows just how influential Luffy has become. The fanboy, who started as comic relief, turned into a pillar of support in one of the biggest battles of the New World. But Bartolomeo isn't the only surprise savior who stepped up when the Straw Hats needed them most. To see that, we have to look back at Skypiea. Gonfall. The Skypiea arc is often debated among fans, but one thing's undeniable. Without Gonfall, Luffy's adventure in the sky would have gone very differently. Gonfall, the former god of Skypiea, was already a legend before Luffy arrived. But when Enel took over and chaos erupted, Gonfall sided with the Straw Hats, offering them guidance, medical aid, and ultimately joining them in the fight against Enel's tyranny. His Pegasus, Pierre, and his willingness to risk everything showed that he wasn't just a bystander. He was a leader who recognized Luffy's potential to bring real change. When you think about it, Gonfall gave Luffy legitimacy in Skypiea. Without his support, the Shandians and the citizens might not have trusted a group of outsiders. And his healing knowledge literally saved the crew's lives after brutal battles in the sky. Gonfall represents that One Piece theme again. Allies come in all shapes and sizes, and sometimes the old knight with a gentle smile is the one who tips the scales. And speaking of tipping the scales, Let's not forget another crucial side character who changed the very course of the Straw Hats' journey, not in Skypiea, but way back in Alabasta. Bon Clay, Mr. 2. If there's one side character that fans will never forget, it's Bentham, better known as Bon Clay or Mr. 2. Initially, he was a comedic villain in Baroque works, flamboyant, loud, and obsessed with friendship. But the moment he met Luffy, everything changed. Bon Clay became one of the few characters outside the crew who truly understood the Straw Hats' bond. And his sacrifice? Legendary. During the Alabasta escape, when the crew was cornered, Bon Clay risked his own life by impersonating the Straw Hats and leading the Marines away. Later, in Impel Down, he did it again, staying behind to hold the gates open so Luffy could escape. Bon Clay didn't just assist Luffy, he embodied one of the core messages of One Piece, the value of friendship and loyalty. He wasn't a Straw Hat, but in many ways, he acted more like one than some of the actual members early on. And this is where Oda's brilliance shows. Bon Clay wasn't destined to be a long-term ally, but his short appearances changed Luffy's journey forever. That's the mark of a side character done right. But while Bon Clay sacrificed himself for Luffy, another character gave Luffy something just as important: hope and direction. For that, we need to talk about Laboon and Crocus. Back in Reverse Mountain, right after entering the Grand Line, the Straw Hats met two very unlikely allies, Laboon, the giant whale, and Crocus, the lighthouse keeper. At first glance, Laboon was just an obstacle, a massive whale ramming its head against the Red Line. But then the truth was revealed. Laboon was waiting for a pirate crew who promised to return, smashing his head against the wall for decades in desperation. This encounter was more than just a side story. It gave Luffy perspective. He promised Laboon that the Straw Hats would return after their adventure and fight him as equals, giving Laboon a reason to hope again. And then there's Crocus. Without him, the crew wouldn't have understood the dangers of the Grand Line or how to survive in its brutal conditions. Crocus was the guide who literally pointed them in the right direction. Think about it. At the very start of the Grand Line, when the crew was at their most inexperienced, it was these two side characters who gave them a sense of purpose and direction. And that's what makes them so unforgettable. But if we're talking about unforgettable, we have to mention one of the most shocking side character reveals in all of One Piece history: Bartholomew Kuma. We've talked about Kokoro saving the Straw Hats, Bartolomeo shielding them, Gonfal guiding them, and Bon Clay sacrificing himself. But none of them compare to the sheer impact of Bartholomew Kuma. On Sabaody Archipelago, when the crew was utterly powerless against the Navy and the warlords, Kuma stepped in. And instead of killing them or handing them over, he did something unthinkable. He scattered the Straw Hats across the world. At the time, it felt like betrayal. But in hindsight, it was the best thing that could have happened. Each crew member got the training and experiences they needed to survive in the new world. Kuma's actions directly led to the Straw Hats' growth during the time skip. And here's the heartbreaking part. Kuma did it knowing he would lose himself. He sacrificed his freedom, his identity, and ultimately his humanity to protect Luffy's dream. Kuma isn't just a side character. He's one of the most tragic heroes in One Piece. A man who gave everything to ensure that the Straw Hats could continue their journey. And that's the magic of One Piece. It's not just about the Straw Hats or the villains they fight. It's about the hundreds of characters who step in, sometimes for just a moment, to change everything. From Kokoro's drunken smile, to Bon Clay's tears, to Kuma's silent sacrifice, these side characters remind us that in One Piece, everyone matters. So next time you watch One Piece and a quirky side character shows up, pay attention. They might just be the reason the Straw Hats make it to the next island.